The richest families I've ever worked for spend their whole lives buying something that has no price. You cannot wire money for it. It has never once appeared on a statement I printed for a client, and the people who hold the most of it almost never say the word out loud. I did not believe any of that when I started. For the first decade of my career, I thought my job was returns. I built portfolios and argued about allocation. I sat in conference rooms with men who controlled more capital than some governments, and I spoke to them about basis points, as if 0.25% was the thing keeping them awake. They were polite about it. They let me talk. And then slowly I noticed that the families who had held their money the longest, the ones who were on their 4th and 5th generation of real wealth, did not seem to care very much about the things I was paid to care about. They cared about something else. It took me years to see what it was, because it never showed up in the numbers. Here's the thing I got wrong. I assumed the asset was the money, the stock, the bonds, the property, the cash. I assumed that a family with $200 million was, in every way that mattered, richer than a family with 20. What I learned, sitting in those rooms long enough, is that the number on the statement is the least durable thing a family owns. It is the part that evaporates first. The Vanderbilts are the case everyone knows. Cornelius Vanderbilt died in 1877 as the wealthiest man in America. Within 50 years, the fortune was effectively gone, divided and spent and lost. And by the time the family held a reunion in the 1970s, not one of the 120 people in the room was a millionaire. The money was real. It still vanished. So what did the families who kept it have that the Vanderbilts did not? A name people would pick up the phone for. That is the asset. It costs $0 to acquire because money cannot buy it. It is reputation and the web of relationships that reputation holds together. When a certain family calls, the person on the other end says yes before they have heard the details. You will not find it on any balance sheet because accounting has no line for it. But it is the engine underneath everything else, and the oldest families guard it the way a younger person guards a portfolio. Let me tell you why it beats stocks. In plain terms, because this is the part that took me longest to understand. The stock market is the place where everyone is allowed to buy. That is its whole design. It is public, it is liquid, the price is the same for you as it is for the man with a trust fund, and a company lists its shares precisely because it wants money from strangers. Think about what that means. When something is offered to the public, it is being offered to the public because the people closest to it have already taken what they wanted. The retail share is the leftover. It is the seat at the table that was open because the better seats were filled by invitation. Old money does not want the public version of anything. It wants the version that comes before the public one. A private company raising capital does not put a notice in the newspaper. It calls 4 people it trusts and fills the round in an afternoon. A building changes hands in a major city for a price the listings never see because the seller called someone he had known for 20 years rather than risk a public sale. A fund that will not take a new dollar from a stranger will quietly make room for the grandson of a man the founder respected. None of that is illegal. None of it is even hidden. It simply runs on a currency that has no exchange rate, and the currency is trust. The Rothschild family understood this earlier and more completely than almost anyone. In the early 19th century, they ran a private courier network across Europe, fast riders and carrier pigeons, and it moved information faster than the governments those governments were trying to govern. People remember that as a story about spying or speed. It was really a story about relationships. The network worked because every node in it was a person who trusted a Rothschild and was trusted in return. The family had agents in 5 cities who were, in most cases, family. Information flowed because loyalty flowed. The money followed the loyalty. It did not lead it. I want to be precise about the mechanics because reputation sounds soft, and it is not. When a private banker is paid a retainer instead of a commission, the shape of his advice changes. He has no reason to sell you the product that pays him most because nothing pays him more than anything else. He gets the same fee whether he tells you to buy or to wait. So he tells you what he actually thinks, and over years, that honesty becomes a thing you rely on, and the reliance becomes a relationship. and the relationship becomes the channel through which the good opportunities reach you first. The retainer is not the asset, it is the soil the asset grows in. The families who have kept money for centuries figured out long before the rest of us that you must pay for advice in a way that does not corrupt the advisor, or the advice is worth nothing. There's a second mechanic, and it is the one most people miss. A trusted name lowers the cost of every transaction a family makes. A stranger borrowing money pays a rate that prices in the chance he will not repay. A family whose word is held for 100 years borrows at a rate that prices in nothing because the lender has watched 4 generations of that family pay on time, in good years and bad. The discount is invisible, and it is enormous. Compound a lower borrowing cost across a century, and it dwarfs whatever the stock market did in the same period. The name is not decoration. It is a permanent reduction in the price of capital. Let me show you what that looks like on a single afternoon, because the abstraction hides how plain it is. A company most people will never hear of is raising $40 million. It is a good company. The people who run it do not want the money badly enough to go to the public market, where the price would be set by strangers and the disclosure would hand their competitors a map. So they do what good private companies have always done. They call the few people they trust to stay quiet and to pay on time. One of those calls goes to a family I've sat across from. The family puts in $8 million at a price that will, 3 years later, look like a gift. No one bid against them. There was no auction. The price was low precisely because the round was closed, and the round was closed precisely because everyone in it was known. The public will eventually be allowed to buy this same company at several times that price on the day the early holders want to sell. That is what a public market often is. It is the exit door for the people who came in through a door you were never shown. The family did not get that call because of the $8 million. Plenty of strangers had $8 million. They got the call because of 30 years of return messages and a name that had never once been attached to a lawsuit or a leak. The money was the easy part. The reason they were on the list at all was the asset I am describing, and it had cost them nothing but a long habit of behaving well. Now ask the question I eventually had to ask myself. If this asset is so powerful, why did no one teach it to me? Why is it not on the first page of every financial plan? Because you cannot sell it. That is the entire answer. There is no product. No fund holds it. No broker can place an order for it. No commission attaches to it, and no exchange will ever list it. A whole industry exists to sell you things that can be packaged, and reputation cannot be packaged. It is built one kept promise at a time over decades, and there is no fee in that for anyone, so no one whose job is to sell you something will ever bring it up. The silence is not a conspiracy. It is just the shape of an industry that only talks about the things it can charge you for. The most valuable asset in the room is the one nobody can put a ticket on, so nobody mentions it, and you walk out having heard about everything except the thing that actually matters. The old families never had this problem because they were not waiting for someone to sell it to them. They were building it on purpose, and they were teaching their children to build it, and the teaching looked nothing like a finance lesson. It looked like manners. It looked like discretion. A child in one of these families learns early that you do not talk about what you have because visibility invites people who want a piece of it, and every claim against the family costs money and time and a little bit of the name. The discretion that reads as snobbery from the outside is, from the inside, asset protection. It looked like keeping your word in small things because the small things are how a reputation is tested before anyone trusts you with large ones. It looked like marrying carefully in earlier centuries because a marriage joined 2 networks, and a bad one could poison both. The whole apparatus of old money behavior, the understatement, the long memory, the horror of a public scandal, the habit of paying early, makes sense the moment you see it as the maintenance of a $0 asset that took generations to build and can be destroyed in an afternoon. The Vanderbilts had the money and let the name go. The families who are still here had the discipline to do it the other way around. So here's what I do differently now, after 30 years, and what I tell the few people who ask me honestly what I have learned. Your reputation is the highest yielding asset you will ever hold, and it is the only one priced at zero when you acquire it. Treat your word as a balance you cannot afford to overdraw. Pay people back early. Answer the call you would rather avoid. Keep the secret you were trusted with, even when telling it would help you. Give the credit to the person who is not in the room. None of this will show up in your net worth for a long time, and then one day someone will be in a position to do something that changes your life, and they will do it without hesitating because of who they already know you to be. That moment is the dividend. You will have been paying into it for years without seeing the line item. The stock you buy today, anyone can buy. The version of you that other people trust completely, no one can buy at any price, including you. You can only earn it slowly and then refuse to spend it cheaply. Start with the next promise you make. Keep it.